coming to you live on Power Talk. Please go to our website, powertalk.live, download our free app, and stream all of our live local programming, including Solomon on Blast and the Jim Parisi Show and yours truly, the Jake Feinberg Show. And we can't thank you enough for making us part of your day, making us part of your day today so we can continue to connect the dots and enlighten people as to the magic and mysticism of the band known as the Grateful Dead. Today I had an opportunity to be in that parade and circus for some time, and it is an honor to welcome her to the show. Shelley Kreutzmann, welcome to the Jake Feinberg Show.
Thank you. Welcome to Radio Land.
Yeah, no, it is just a high honor to connect with you, my friend. I just want to start with something here. You sent me a picture of Jerry. And you said magic is what we do, music is how we do it. And so my question is, did you experience magic before the Grateful Dead?
I had heard of the Grateful Dead. I had moved to California, but I had never listened to them. I'm about 8-9 years younger than Bill, so I had heard of them, but I had never gone to see them play. I happened to meet Billy through a friend of mine that was working for him, and that was my experience with the Grateful Dead. So, before being part of the scene and being with Bill, I had no real experience or listened to them as a band.
What kind of music were you checking out live before you? When did you first move to the Bay Area?
I had lived in Wisconsin and was teaching in Oshkosh and was sort of disillusioned, and my relationship was ending, so I packed up my Dodge Dart with my little 4x8 U-Haul that I had only known how to drive forward. I didn't know how to back up or anything. And my sister was living in Berkeley. So I drove across the country 3-4 days, ended up in Berkeley, and my sister had the local San Francisco Chronicle that happened to have a job offer for a speech and hearing therapist, which I was, up in Mendocino. So the next day after I arrived, I drove up to Mendocino, and the lady that was working there was moving to Hawaii. I didn't have a family or much baggage, so the gentleman hired me there on the spot. And that's how I ended up in Mendocino, which is where Bill was living at the time, in the small town of Comshe, which is in between Mendocino and Ukiah.
Wow,
this is fast. I worked there for quite a while. Yeah, I'm listening.
No, I just, it was. Can you talk? I consider myself, somewhat infatuated with the Northern California area, but I don't know. What is that place? Is it like a lot of land out there? Can you describe what?
It's more of a logging community. It's right in between Mendocino, which is on the coast, and Ukiah, which is inland. So it's right smack dab in the middle, and it is was a logging community. I think the logging has now ceased because all the beautiful redwood trees have been taken.
Right.
But Bill was living in Comshe, and I was living in Mendocino. And like I said, a friend of mine was working for him and said, hey, why don't you come down to the Seagull Bar, which is a sweet little bar in Mendocino, because Bill's down here. And I went down there, and we actually just connected on our own, and that's how I met Bill. And then after that is when I learned about the music, which, funny enough, was through an event where he had some Visine in his DOP kit, but I had no idea that it was actually LSD.
Right.
And I went and used the Visine, and I was like, wow, that really burns. That kind of hurts. I wonder what's wrong with it. Went down, and he just taught me how to play backgammon, and about an hour later I go, wow, this is so weird, but it feels like I'm tripping. And he says, have you been into my DOP kit? And I'm like, wow, how could he know that? And I went, yes, I have. And he goes, well, you just put acid in your eye. I go, yeah, I figured that out. And at that point, he started putting on Grateful Dead music.
Wow.
And that's when I got the magic part. I went, oh, you guys are a tripping band.
A tripping.
So that was sort of my introduction to listening to the Grateful Dead. Prior to that, I had heard of them, but had never listened to their music. Oh, I had tripped in college, so that's why I knew what it was about. I'd done my fair share.
You had done your fair share of acid, so you and so. But when you first met Bill, it was more like, hey, this was just like a connection. He didn't even tell you he was in a band or anything like that.
Well, I did know he was in the Grateful Dead, but I just wasn't really knew much about their music or had listened to it. So at the event with the Visine is when I sort of started getting it, and then I started traveling with the band and going to live gigs, and that's when I could really share the magic. When there were good shows, I mean, there were good shows and then some not so good shows, but when they were on, it was magical. If there were bad shows, you could see that all the band members were frustrated, either maybe the sound on the stage or the quality of how the sound was coming from the venue. You know, he wouldn't share that much. I mean, they would just be frustrated. I don't really know how to answer that, but you know, you could just see that either, you know, at the break, you know, don't be listening to what you hear, or somebody's playing too loud, and they would just forge ahead to the best of their ability, and you know, that would be a not great show, and then they could have a great one the next day. Yeah, I don't really know what was going on in his mind, but I could see frustration in the band, either, you know, hey, we're not doing well, or the hall doesn't sound well, or, you know, the monitors are too loud.
Did you, I mean, being somebody that tripped out in college, that might have been on the periphery of the free love consciousness movement, what was that scene like? That was, to me, the tail end. That was the beginning of Reagan. He had not totally sunk his teeth in yet, but paint that picture of Shakedown Street.
As I recall, wasn't Lowell George was the producer, right?
Absolutely correct. He taught Bobby how to play slide.
Well, they would go down to Front Street, and Lowell George would be there, and there was, you know, they would go in and record, you know, lay down their tracks. Justin and Bill and I were living in this kind of sketchy neighborhood, so we'd be down there for the while they were recording. So they'd go in and record, and you know, Lowell George was a big part of that, and that's what they would do. Is we just go down to Front Street, record, and lay down their tracks, and eventually Shakedown Street came. I remember though when they sent a gal into they all wore the white suit, so this lady who was a tailor came in and, you know, outfitted Bill in his suit for the photo shoot, and they all, of course, had their white suits. I do remember that. I remember he and I trying to write a song, and boy, is that hard. We never did get a song written.
Well, let's
tried.
I would love to hear about the try. I mean, what was this? How did this?
Well, we just sat around. I'm sure we were partying and doing things that, you know, right now I would never do. But I think we just tried really hard to write lyrics, and anybody who's a poet, I applaud, because it's hard to write a song. We never got one off the ground.
You know, some cats. So I mean, can you? Like, were you? So once you discovered this Visine, this doc bag, how? I mean, were you? Was it fair to say that you were like doing that almost on the like? How would it work if you were? Would you go on tour basically when you first met Billy?
I would go on tour, but that was really, I didn't go out and look for it. That was just this kind of accidental surprise. And I personally never got dosed at shows, but there are people who did. So yeah, it was more sadly cocaine.
Right,
cocaine,
the coke was starting to become really heavy at that time. It's crazy.
Yeah, and that was the big thing, you know, in the 70s. It's okay, it's not going to hurt you, but it definitely catches up to you. It was not my friend. In the beginning it was, but in the end, no. So, I didn't do tons of acid with the band. That was my sort of introduction, and I can't remember if I ever did it again after that.
I'm talking to Shelley Kreutzmann here on the Jake Feinberg Show, and she's doing great. She's having a ball here. So, I mean, could you just talk about the morale? I mean, because I believe that, I mean, were you there for the end of Donna and Keith?
I was. Keith had died in the car accident. Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure. When I think back on the shows, that if poor Keith was not doing well either with drugging or drinking, that the frustration would come out, either at the break, and Donna did the best she could, with the situation, with their relationship, and that's about all I can remember. Some things are a little dim, but I know when Brent came on board, it was really, really exciting. He was an incredible guy, wonderful musician, loved his songs that he wrote for his beautiful children.
What was Billy's concept of practicing his chops? I mean, was he the type of guy who would spend time when the band wasn't touring or on the road? Would he play? What would that look? What was his studio? Would he just go to San Rafael to practice? I mean, did he have a studio in the house? How did that look?
No, he had a drum kit in the house, and I never really saw him practice much. But then he did start having other bands. He played in a country western band with Larry the Laser Murphy. He played with the Healy Treese band. They went out east.
Well, you're dropping some serious on. This is absolutely. What are you talking about? Break these down. I've never heard of these bands.
I forgot how Bill found Larry the Laser Murphy, but he played, and I can't remember the name of the band, but he played. It was a kind of a country western band. He played with them for a while, and then Healy Treese, Dan Healy, and Richard Treese, who has sadly passed. They had a band, and we were back east. I remember being in New Jersey going, wow, this is amazing, because we were sort of just like at a local motel thing, and they would, drive to their gigs and get home really late. I didn't go to every gig, but he played in that band, and they were quite good. Those are the two that I can remember.
I'm looking
at
right. I'm looking at right. Bill Kreutzmann All Stars in '84. David Nelson, Larry Murphy, Laser Murphy, and Bill Kreutzmann. So,
and I think his dad played in there too. Maybe Laser's dad, but
Larry was his dad, right? Larry Murphy played steel guitar, violin, and guitar. This is unbelievable. They played 4 gigs. It says here.
Yeah, and then, I remember him recording, and I think it was Dan Healy and Darlene Domenico with my beloved Philo, who had built the most beautiful music studio in Compshe, the middle of nowhere, way ahead of his time, echo chambers, and he recorded some songs there too with Dan Healy. Oh, I think the few things that interested him, but he didn't practice a lot. He had his chops down. He just would go in and play. It was always amazing, and I think he was just part of the group. I wouldn't say he was necessarily the leader. Now, maybe now with his Molly 7 or that other group that he's had out there.
Seven Walkers, yep.
Thank you.
Of course.
He would just jump in there and play. He was just, hey, let's play some music. But he was so talented. I mean, I never saw him practice. I mean, he might do a little bit on the drum pad, but he just could play, just had that talent, which I don't know if it's in his book, but when he was in Orm School, no, actually it was in high school. I think he was in a music class, and the teacher said, "You have no talent." and then he was at this school, and he wasn't doing well scholastically. He couldn't be on the football team, and his father brought his drum set out. And then I think maybe that's where he really was mastering his chops. But, at the time I knew him, he didn't have to practice much. He was just talented.
Band leader is, or who the fans see as the band leader. Most of the time, Billy would be keeping time the way a traditional rhythm guitarist would keep rhythm. Mickey would be playing leads on top of Billy's backbeat. Mickey would be laying down all sorts of exotic, exploratory, spacey staccato. They would switch off, have hand signals, verbal signals. Still to this day, you see them smiling at each other. That's a really sweet quote. But when you were at those live shows, how did they stay out of each other's way? Because sometimes it does. I mean, did he get bummed out sometimes? Because it just seems to me like there were times where it does sound like shoes in it could sound like sneakers in a dryer.
Well, Billy always was the main crux of the drum section, and then Mickey would embellish. And sometimes he would say, or maybe see if Mickey could take over, and then it's not as good as when Bill leads the charge. So I know for the band, he laid down the main beat that they could all come off of.
Did he?
He was his own leader, I guess, because they needed that solid, steady rhythm that they could all play off of.
He was able to keep the beat, but it seems to me like Mickey really. I'm just trying to also figure out like whether he was really. To me, it was like frustrating sometimes if he couldn't hear himself.
Well, it would be. I'm a little confused because they all have monitors. Not sure how to answer that.
You know what I'm trying to get at is just the idea of basically. I've talked to enough cats to know that Mickey Hart could not keep time. He was okay. He was definitely he's a great percussionist, but you talk to a lot of cats and they say, what was his role in the Grateful Dead? Because Billy was.
I think he was an embellisher. Mickey was an embellisher, and I do agree with what you've had from other conversations that Billy really was, and he was the original drummer. So, but he had to lay down those tracks or the beats so everybody else could play off of him. And there'd be frustrations if maybe Mickey was off, or once in a while I think he would lay back just to see if he could keep it, and it wasn't as good as when Bill was, the main drummer and laying down the beat so everybody could play with him.
Did you go to those? You are in the classic outtakes of the Radio City Music Hall shows with Al Franken and.
Oh yeah.
Okay, and the way Justin described it was that Billy got lonely there, called you guys up, and you flew out there.
Actually, I think the road manager said, "Please come, we need you." And I was teaching, was a speech and hearing teacher, and Justin and wait a minute, I was working next door to where Justin was going to school in Mill Valley. He had one classroom, and I worked as an aide to the other one. They called, "Please come out," and we got on an airplane and flew out there. And what a excitement that was! All the acoustic set, and then the electric set, and all the excitement with Saturday Night Live people. It was quite. I'm so glad they called and invited us out there. It was fun.
Please come, because why, Billy? Did he get lonely though? I mean, he really, really relied on you.
Well, it was just, I don't know exactly what events that they felt that I needed to be there, but they just said, "We need you." Maybe it was too much. I never heard the word lonely, but they said, "Please come, we need you." So we did. We just came out there. So I'm not sure what dynamics actually prompted them, but, we were happy to go out there and be with them.
Did you, when you first started to hang out with Billy, did you go on all the tours? I mean, can you remember vividly, can you just talk about a magical moment where you kind of just totally lost yourself and thought you couldn't even believe what you were witnessing on stage?
There was a show in upstate New York. I think it was Schenectady. I always have a hard time remembering it. It was a Sunday night.
Yeah.
It was pouring down rain, and they had the biggest walk-up ticket sale ever. And they were just so good. I mean, your jaw would drop. And I think that would be, for your average Joe, wow, if they can have a really good night, so can I. Because some nights it was just like, they gave you goosebumps. And then other nights, not so much. That would be one. Going to Egypt was huge.
So you were already with Billy and you went to.
I had met him, and that would probably be the first big thing. I met him in 1978, and it seems to me that next fall or something, they went to Egypt, and I talked to my principal, and I was like, I gotta go, man. This is like a chance in a lifetime. And there was a gal that was going to split my job, and it was right when school started, and I went to her. I said, please. She goes, I get it. So that was so exciting. I mean, other than that, I would have never gone to Egypt. Not that they could play there now, but that was very exciting. Going to New York always is exciting. They were always recognized, and with just the excitement of New York, and and of course shows at Winterland. Seeing Bill Graham always dressed up. He'd always be there at midnight for the Grateful Dead with different costumes. I mean, that was always fun. The Bay Area shows, the Greek shows, when they did that, they were very, very special. They'd start, the first show would be like at 7, then Saturday would be 5, and maybe Sunday at 3.
I love it. Can you talk about, please, Shelley? Because honestly, all I listen to, I mean, honestly, the Greek May '83 is one of the most amazing three show runs. I know Aerto Moreira showed up on Sunday, but I was trying to figure that out, because a lot of the times the stuff is in daylight. So you'd say that they would gradually start at night and then move towards the early afternoon.
Yeah, every day got earlier and earlier, and it was sometimes harder because people were sort of partying a lot. But it was just fun. I think that's where maybe Bill Walton was pulled in. I think they saw him out in the crowd or something. I don't know. It was just a lot of fun. Actually, before I'd seen the Grateful Dead, my sister took me to see, I can't think of her name, but this wonderful gal. That was my first experience. But I just loved the Greek. I loved the seating, and the fans just thought it was great. I'm not sure about the city of Berkeley. I think the fans sometimes took liberties on sleeping in people's yards and using them for the restroom, but on the whole, they were always a lot of fun. Just incredible amount of fun.
What was that? Do you remember the first time you met Lisa Midland?
Wow.
Because I look at you two guys and I say, out of all the girls, out of all the women, I don't want to leave out any. I'm like, these are the two coolest cats in the world. Because I mean, besides Jerry, set aside, I love all the guys, truly. But honestly, you two are where it's at. And I'm like, I really think that Greek '83 was, because I know Lisa's first show the show that she met Brent at was in Stanford in '82, which was in October. I'm just wondering the role of where were you at? Were you backstage? Like, where would you set up or would you just go into the crowd and?
Well, no, I was always backstage, and Bill had a wonderful roadie, Billy Garillo, and I would just be in my area and make sure I was out of the way, or if there was a guest I brought up on stage, my job was to make sure that they didn't get in anybody's way, and I would attend to if there was a guest there. And Lisa, she was very young. I don't remember hanging out with her a lot, but boy, what a gal. Just the most amazing, sweetest, beautiful children with Brent. Very sweet. And I'm sure she was back. I mean, we'd all be in our little areas. Jill would be where, Phil's roadie was, and I'd be with mine, and, everybody would be sort of in their little spots. I don't have a huge memory of meeting Lisa right away. I know she was just a sweet young girl that Brent fell in love with.
This is just so classic. What can you talk about? Essentially, this period of time, late '70s into the '80s. Well, first off, I want you to just talk about your personal relationship and sort of if you could give a kind of a synopsis of Jerry Garcia. Who was Jerry to you? What made him a magical person? Why do you love Jerry Garcia outside of the obvious?
Yeah, we didn't hang out that much. I remember at the end of the first tour I went on, I think I said, thank you for letting me come or something. And at the time, he said, wow, you're the best thing that's ever happened to him. But, we didn't, I just appreciated him as a musician. Like I said, we didn't really hang out that much. It was hard to see him struggle with his drug use. He'd be in it, and then he'd sort of recover and then be so there and present backstage and laughing and participating. So I think the hardest thing was seeing him struggle with his addiction, where he'd be really exciting and lively and fun to watch at the backstage area, and then when he was suffering, how sad it was, to be that troubled. And it's very common, I think, with artists.
I mean, I don't know how the morale must have been hurting. I just wonder if Billy ever tried to, if he did his.
Well, we all went. The Touch of Grey song is about where I was the only woman. I don't know why, but we actually went to Jerry's, and hey, things aren't so good. Sort of to reach out to him, and then they wrote Touch of Grey, and it's when they were playing at RFK in D.C., and that's when he had a tooth infection, and for some reason had not, to the best of my memory, taken all of his antibiotics. And he wasn't looking good after the show. And then Bill called. I think he flew home, and I stayed because my family's out there. And he says, I'm giving you a heads up, Jerry's in the hospital. He's not well. And after that, after he came back, that's when they just went, big venues, huge, big stadiums and stuff.
It
was hard.
Yeah.
It was so hard for them to see their bandmate struggle. But again, it's a personal thing that they do behind closed doors. But that's the Touch of Grey, is when we all went and said, hey, we love you. We be here.
Well, the truth is that tune had been in working rotation in the live setting since 1982. Shelley, I've been out of my mind for a couple of years, and people will occasionally come on and say, oh yeah, Billy treated me like crap at this bar in 84, maybe it was, who knows, but at the core, can you just talk about his heart and maybe a specific example of his love?
Well, when we first met, it was just really exciting. He was very sweet. When I met Bill, Justin was not living with us, and so probably one of the biggest, sweetest things is that we became a family. That Justin came to live with us. At the time, he was living with his grandmother, and we had been together for a while, and then we decided to move to Mill Valley, and Justin came to live with us. So, probably Christmases and, things like that, and Thanksgiving and, just being a family. He was, I always say good things about Bill. I mean, it was an honor to be part of that scene, that Bill had loved me and married me, and then I was able to experience it. Dead Ahead is, the new band is good, but, I got to live those special moments and all the crew that some of us that aren't here, like Ramrod and Big Steve, just the family. That was a lot of fun, bringing friends on stage and how excited. At one point we had the actors from All My Children come.
Get out of here.
They were just flabbergasted. Yeah, the gal that's on TV, she played Haley. I'm having a little senior moment. Kelly Ripa.
Kelly Ripa. Really?
She was playing she was playing Haley, this sort of offbeat character. But they all came. A lot of them came to the show, and then we in turn went and I watched them film All My Children. Events like that, or when Jerry was making his ties, it seems to me we had some big time. Al Gore came and. Walter Cronkite. I met Rutger Hauer. The people that would show up at these shows that were Deadhead would just be amazing.
Did you get a chance to go to Jamaica in '82?
I did.
I want to
Yeah,
hear
they
about
played
that
it.
immediately. I mean, because Billy Cobham,
They played it in the middle of the night, as I remember.
I want you to break that down because Billy Cobham said that. Now, Billy Cobham is a tremendous drummer and has never did a drug in his life, but he said that on the plane ride over, it was 90% deadheads. He said it was pandemonium. But was that the first time you went to Jamaica?
No, I had been in college. I'd been in Negril before. I mean, it's probably way different now, but yeah, I had actually been to Negril and stayed there and had experienced Jamaica. I don't remember much about the flight over or anything like that, but I remember they played. I mean, it was a sort of field with no grass. It was dirt, and it seemed to me for some reason they played really late in the night.
They played Scarlet Fire as the sun was coming up.
And then some local Jamaican guy came up to Bill and complimented on his drumming. It was like, who was really listening at that hour? It's just sort of like when they played Rock Palace in Germany on TV. It seemed to me they played in the middle of the night.
Okay, so they went to Europe twice in '81. Did you go on those tours?
I'm sure I did. I remember them playing live for Rock Palace, and it seems to me the Who was ahead of them.
You're 100%. You were there at that show, though.
Yeah, I remember being backstage, somebody trying to teach me how to juggle, and they were, playing very late in the night.
Oh my God, this is your memory is phenomenal. No, there was
There's some things, some no, but yeah, I remember Rock Palace, and just that in Jamaica they seemed like, God, we were awake forever waiting for them to play. It was just like, wow, when are they going to go on? I can't remember if they were the last band, but I do remember Billy saying some Jamaican guy complimenting his drumming. Probably one of the few people that were out there listening.
Dude, I mean, I would. This is so class. Can you explain, as best you can, why someone like me is so attached to this music? I mean, my younger daughters, that's all they listen to. My youngest daughter has speech. She gets speech every week. She sings the lyrics too. Why is that? Why is it? What is the essence there, Shelley? I mean, you were there. In my mind, most people would laugh at it, but in my mind, you were there for the greatest years, the early Brent years, the time when they extended the beast on the drums. The time when really, as far as I'm concerned, they all became better musicians, even though Jerry sunk into his drug-induced stuff. Why do I feel that way? Why is there magic?
I think they were always willing to improvise. There's so many groups out there. I think I heard somebody say, I can't remember who it was, is that if this other group didn't play note for note the same thing every night, they were out. The Grateful Dead were willing to take a risk, and they grew on you. I mean, here was somebody myself who never heard them, but after you heard the songs, and then you got attached to them. Oh, my God, here comes Bertha or Fire on the Mountain, Can I guess what they're going to play? And when, as they said, music is how we do it. It would just, I think it gives you, if they can do it, we can do it. We can have a really good day. There was just something about them that it just grew on you. Like Jerry said, it's like licorice. Either you like us or you don't. And it just, the songs are like your friends. I mean, if I hear a Grateful Dead song on the radio, I turn it up. For a while, I couldn't listen after we broke up, but I'm always amazed at the amount of Deadheads and cover tunes and people now just playing their music. There's that thing on Facebook where it's all these different people over the world playing Ripple, or that it was on movie Mask.
Right.
Yeah. There's just something about their songs. I mean, I have goosebumps talking about it.